we've got a thing on. Okay, I can't see whether we're live or not yet. Here we go. Hello, welcome to the live. I'm in conversation with Belinda Claveria, who is a highly sought after pleasure coach. I'm not sure of her exact title, but she uses kinesiology and other modalities. Welcome, Belinda.
Thanks, Tabitha.
Can you please give some more information about your business and what you do?
Sure. So I work as a coach and a holistic therapist. I'm trained as a kinesiologist, and I'm also trained as a coach to work with people both in pleasure, presence, and passion. Like they're the three areas that I'm really passionate about, and I feel big life changes for people. So
Yes.
yeah.
What I'm really interested in finding out about, and we only have 30 minutes, this Facebook Live will go from 7 till 7:30. Very interested in finding out about how you're using your knowledge and your practice to help people during this time of isolation where people are finding things quite difficult, and very interested in finding out how your experience of showing people how to use pleasure in these times has been working.
Okay, great. I think I should also say that I'm training to be a sexological bodyworker. So so I'm very much interested in the world of the erotic. So that's a really good question, because not everyone has access to pleasure very readily in their body or their mind, depending on what's going on. And one of the greatest blocks to pleasure is stress. So one of the things that I do foremost in clinic is to firstly support people to come back into their bodies and have conversations about the kind of stress that they're experiencing in their world, and bring greater attention onto what is working. That's always really important. And then create a lot of empathy and compassion around the things that they'd like to improve. So that's what I do.
Wonderful. And I have, I'm very grateful that I've been able to have some of Belinda's pleasure coaching. And what I found, which I was very surprised about, is that it had a big effect on lots of different areas of my life. So I found that I just had a whole lot more energy to do all sorts of things like redesign my bedroom, keep my kitchen clean, lots more energy to go out and start doing more exercise. I found I had just better state of mind at work and in business, and I found opportunities started opening up to me. And it was, really interesting how everything kind of worked in together. So I was really appreciative about that. One of the questions that I'm interested in finding out about, which I think would be very helpful, is what do you suggest for people to do when they're in a state of mind where they really feel shut down in lots of areas, and even though they might know, that it's going to be helpful, for example, to go out and do exercise or to play music, you just don't feel like doing any of that sort of stuff. So what do you suggest in those places where you're just so shut down that you just don't have the motivation to do the things that you know are helpful for your well-being?
Okay. Right. Well, I guess firstly, I want to say that these things hit all people at certain times in their lives. So, firstly, to really put a lot of compassion towards yourself in that situation, and I think we're often scared around mental health, and there can be stigma around being really open. So one of the key things is to engage in looking at what your network is of support, to draw in that support so that you can boost your life, and actually ask the question of what brings you pleasure currently in your life. And it might only might be a small amount, but what we're trying to do is to bring the awareness of what that feels like in the body, and to expand it and create some expansion around that. Does that make sense? So what you're talking about is people that are actually they've shut down and they've become a bit numb. My big thing is to actually, for people to firstly to take some inner awareness of what's currently happening in their bodies, and notice which parts are actually, that are actually alive. And I think that's what we did with you, is we kind of we worked with what was working, and then we expanded you into creating new tools. And that's the beauty of neuroplasticity, is that whilst it might seem that the body is numb, when you go into self-exploration, you'll actually find that there are actually many parts of the body that are alive. So that's one aspect. And the other thing that's really simple, and it's often banged on about, is gratitude. Gratitude is an extraordinary simple act of ensuring that what you're doing is you're opening up your lens to what gives you joy. And it's so simple, but it's a necessary practice, and I'm really big on practice. So it's around consistency. So the more that you do something consistently, you're going to making that muscle stronger, and you're expanding your capacity to go, you know what, I'm really grateful for the moment that I opened up the blind today and there was sunshine coming through, or I'm really grateful that my child brought me a cup of tea, or I'm really grateful that I get to sit here and savor this beautiful piece of chocolate. So gratitude is a simple practice, but it's something that is incredibly effective, and it's just a matter of putting in practice and doing it regularly. So that would be one thing. And the other thing too is to actually, because stress is such a big block to pleasure, is to go into identifying what is the stress. Is it that you're not making time for yourself? Is it that it's coming from a more biological, biochemistry situation where you do need to explore what food you're eating, or is it about the routine that you've got in your life? Are you creating routine for the basic needs? Like, you need to cover these basic need states, and then we can build on from there.
Well, one thing that I noticed that I was very grateful for is that suddenly in the kitchen I was using spices again. So before, I went for such a long period where I just felt like, especially in the first stage of shutdown, and with everything going on, trying to work and trying to deal with my daughter's schooling from home, and it just felt like everything was too difficult. And so it would come to the end of the day and I'd just, quickly do something very simple, and there were lots of eggs and lots of just steamed vegetables. But then after I got into this new state, this new way of being, and sort of back to my old way of being, I found that I felt like cooking, and I just felt like eating good food. It hadn't been one of the things that I looked forward to before that. So it was really amazing how all these different systems are so entwined. And that's something interesting to me. Like, how does all of that work?
Beautiful. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you kind of really open to greater sensory awareness. Like, suddenly you were using spices. It wasn't, you didn't want plain. You wanted wanted richness. And what I did with Tabitha was pleasure coaching, and really looking at how she can create daily rituals for self-pleasure. And so, and we also looked at, it was actually also engaging even further into masturbation coaching. And it was really, really important. And we have we have a body that is full of nerve endings, and it's about reawakening them. And I really like to hear that that's what happened for you. I think it's wonderful, because there's so much pleasure in the simplicity of food, isn't there?
Well, it then went into other things too, like at the start of COVID, I had really good well-being because I'd done lots of exercise. Lily and I, during my breaks from work, I'd have a 10-minute break here and a 10-minute break there, and a lunchtime break, and we'd jump on our bikes and just go for a bike ride around the block. But then I got a puncture and just never got around to fixing it. So after that, I took my bike down to the bike repair shop, had it all fixed up, and now have been inspired by my sister-in-law, who's been doing massive bush riding, and so I've been getting out, not quite doing as much as she's doing yet, but just increasing my fitness and heading up and down Bells Boulevard every second day or so, And then even just doing each of these different things, they all add together, and it just feels like, just everything starts to rise. So, yeah,
Wonderful.
really good.
Yeah, I'm hearing that you got a lot more energy. You had energy to do things that you loved. So, I, well, I also so my one of my foundational trainings is coming from the energy body. That's like one of my absolute passions. And what you're talking about is that we started to unleash energy that had been blocked. So it sounds to me that I think what we did is opened your heart to being able to experience the things that you loved. And this is the wonderful thing about working with the body by engaging sound, movement, breath, creating these portals to open again. Because when you engage in touch, you're activating the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is part of the parasympathetic nervous system.
What is the vagus nerve? I don't know very much about it. Where is it? What is it? And what does it do?
So it's the 10th cranial nerve, and it's running from up at the kind of the top of the skull, and it runs all the way down to the tailbone. And it helps to lower blood pressure, calm the heart rate, and increase oxytocin in the body when it's particularly with touch. So it lowers cortisol too. And so using things like breath, sound, touch, when these are incorporated with a clear intention to invite, like when I work with people, it's I want to engage with them where they're at and to help incrementally expand their capacity. And so to do that, it's about creating greater sensitivity, and that's what I did with you, and what I do with clients is to encourage greater sensitivity in the body by bringing attention, very key tension to the somatics of what's currently working.
With people stuck in isolation in Victoria at the moment, and some people would be by themselves, or what I'm very interested in is, like, I've really felt for myself, because my daughter doesn't like hugging very much, and she does like being tickled, and we have started doing tickle fights recently, which she really loves. I've started paying her to give me massages.
Nice.
And hot rock massages, which are really beautiful. But what can you suggest for people who are stuck in isolation by themselves? And like going out, I went out to the shops today, and it's really scary because you stay inside for a few days and you kind of forget about it. But then you go out and you see everybody in masks, and it's really confronting. I find it quite a scary thing to see all these people walking around in masks and not be able to see their faces, and it's just this image that's quite scary. So what can you do if you're stuck in a house by yourself and you haven't been able to hug your friends, and maybe your love language is physical touch? What would you suggest for people?
Well, good on you for getting your daughter to massage you. I really like the sound of that. Okay, so if you're by yourself, well, I think what's really important is to put time aside to create a pleasure ritual. So that means really intending to say, this is important. I'm noticing that I'm craving touch. I'm going to put some time aside to explore touch, right? And this is actually, we've all got opportunity. We've got time, and we don't often have this incredible, unique situation of COVID to be isolated, where we've got time to actually explore what it is that turns us on, and what parts may be needing greater attention. So I would suggest what you do is you might, like what you did, beautify your room, create a space that you feel really comfortable in. Engage in the senses, so making sure that there's colours and furs and things that really invite a softness, or whatever's you turn on to create a really beautiful, nourishing space, and make time for you. And the simplicity can firstly, like we talked about touch, but one of the key things to begin with is to actually take some time for attention and mindfulness. And so So just starting with the breath, like taking the time to go inwards and to feel the heart. That's one of the great places to start, is to breathe into the heart space. And so the way to do that, to breathe into your heart space, is to actually almost imagine that you've got, nostrils or a mouth in your heart. And so as you're breathing in, you're taking your attention firstly down to the heart, and then what you're doing is you're allowing the breath to expand into the heart space. And then, you could just be like, it's about being playful, and actually having curiosity. So employing curiosity towards the body. Starting off, just exploring the hands. That we've got these incredible organs that have they're incredibly sensitive. And firstly, starting off with the hands, exploring the hands, and then just feeling into where needs to be touched, and not being afraid of that. Like not having shame around that. This is this exquisite portal that we have that we can share with another individual, and that's why it's so important is to have a daily practice, because the more that we get to know our own bodies and what turns us on, the greater chance we're going to have when we're with someone that we can experience greater pleasure.
Can you talk a little bit more about your practice of mindfulness and your use of mindfulness in this? Because for me, it feels like using the senses within mindfulness is a really important thing, and I'd like to hear your views on that.
Yeah. Well, meditation is something that I think is really, really vital, and everyone does it differently. So I acknowledge that not everyone can just sit on a mat and meditate. But it is a skill, and it's a practice, and it's about building it up slowly. Like finding some space again where you can sit, and so are you asking about actually like a technique in order to use?
Yeah, possibly that would be
Yeah. So I work with a whole heap of different techniques for myself. I think one of the key things to do is to ground. It's a very easy technique, and that's to find a position where you can sit and just feel for the sit bones. So really connecting to the sit bones first, exploring the sense of weight in your body, and then taking your attention to your breath is one of the best things to do. And when I say take attention to the breath, I mean like see if you can actually take your breath into your belly. And we so often tense our bellies, and particularly as women, we're kind of used to holding our bellies in, and I let it soften. So softening the belly and breathing into the belly can be a key thing, and just really watching how the breath moves in the belly, and the expansion of the breath on the as you breathe in, and then expanding the belly, and simple practice like that. And the reason why simple practice of mindfulness is so vital is because, particularly in relationships, is it gives you an understanding of where I begin and where I end, and where you begin and where you end. This, when you have this inner awareness of what's moving inside you, what thoughts are running through your head, it helps you then to be in relationship with another person to identify, is this my feeling, or is this person's feeling? And this is really a great life skill. And also in COVID, what's really important in this isolation is to be doing mindfulness outside, accessing opportunity to mindfulness simply means to take attention to what's there, so bringing attention to the sounds around you, and then coming back to the body. Does that?
Yeah. And the discussion of relationships also leads me on to another question, because I understand you do relationship counselling as well, and so I'm interested, coaching. So I'm interested to find out if you've got any ideas for people who are stuck inside. Sometimes there might be really beautiful times with family, other times it could be getting really difficult with lots of different personalities stuck inside a house for so long together. So I'm just wondering whether you've got any ideas to share with people about how they can get through this time more easily when those sorts of things are going on.
Yes. So what we're talking about is lack of space, like we're all crowded in and we're sharing the same space day in, day out, and so there's a few things there. So firstly, I'm a somatic practitioner. It's my training is to work within the tantra field and within working with the body and the breath. So in order to have space to be able to receive another person, to be able to receive the good things that are happening in your world, you've got to be able to create spaciousness in your mind and in your body. So I'm a big believer of daily practice. Yeah, because whenever we do something consistently, we're running like, it's like a track through a forest. If you keep walking the same track every day, you're going to start to create an indentation and a pathway. And so what you want to do is light up the brain to create these possibilities for pleasure and joy. So creating a daily practice where you can create spaciousness in your being, and that's really important. So that way what you're doing is you're shortening the wick of like if you've got like, I always think about in the cartoons, they'd have the bomb, the TNT bomb, and then they'd have the wick, right? And what stress does is stress really kind of shortens our wick, and we're ready to blow up in the household with everyone around us. So daily practice, doing kind of somatic work where you're actually expanding your energy field through the breath, through intention, movement, and sound, is lengthening that wick out. So that's one thing. And also it creates spaciousness in the heart, which means that if your partner comes to you and says something like, hey, would you like a cup of tea, you can engage in it into like, yes, thank you, honey, I'd love a cup of tea. So that's one thing I would say, spaciousness. And then I think the other thing too is that we're driven at the moment by a lot of when we're stuck inside, sameness. And humans need a certain amount of certainty, but they also need a lot of variety, and this is what's so great, is what we're starting to see is people being playful on Facebook and running around and picking up the garbage in in crazy outfits and things like that. So I think what's really important is to find ways to be playful. Really finding ways to be playful, and it can be something as simple. From a simple thing could be, let's eat dinner on the floor tonight. Or let's take our food outside. That's something really simple. Or it could be playful in, hell, you know what? Let's dress up. Let's create some role play in our relationship tonight. Or there's plenty of ways that you can get quite playful with each other. So creating play, finding a new skill, taking up rollerblading, or going. There's a lot of people learning how to surf, so doing things that bring joy. And the more that you bring joy in your life, you can feed that back into your world, feed that back into your partner and into your children. And this is a spirit of generosity. When we take the time to be generous for ourselves, when we take the time to say pleasure is important for me, and I'm going to prioritize that in my life, then we have a capacity to be generous with others.
Yeah, I've been dreaming of my disco ball today. I need to find it and put it up and do some more dancing.
I'll come and dance with you at some point.
Or even we can do it over the Zoom.
I've done that.
I don't think I've done a dance Zoom party yet.
I did a great burlesque Zoom party, and it was so much fun. I was so surprised, and I was stuck by my little self up in the country, and I was really surprised by how incredibly connected I felt to everyone.
I saw it after. Unfortunately.
Fun.
So we've got about 7 minutes remaining. So if there's anybody who has any questions, please put them up in the comments. There is a bit of a delay, but hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions later. If you want to put comments or questions in after the live, we should be able to answer them. Can I ask you, how can people get in touch with you, and what sorts of services are you helping people with? Like, one thing I saw recently was that you're helping year 12s who are finding things quite difficult and doing some work with them. So could you just give a little bit more explanation about the different types of things that you do, and what things people can access that they might not have thought of?
Okay, all right. So I always tailor my sessions to my clients. You're right. Currently, I'm offering services to VCE students, and I'm taking people into my amazing backyard, which is the dunes, and we're doing COVID style kind of coaching and counselling sessions, which are working really, really well. So getting people to look out over that ocean and doing some NLP and doing some energetic tapping work and mindset work and mindfulness. But my passion is definitely for presence, passion and pleasure. It's a big thing for me. I work with clients in clinic, and I also work as a kinesiologist. So I've got this background in energetics and working on not just the physical body, but working on the esoteric and the energetic body. I do a mixture of what's called embodied counselling sessions, and they're very beautiful, gentle sessions to support people to get a sense of what's perhaps if they've got any kind of injuries or whatever's holding them back, and then we do coaching. So my work now is moving more and more into supporting people to be in contact with their eroticism, which is great, really exciting because it's such a life force. So I really believe in that. And you can get to either have Zoom sessions or one-on-one sessions.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So people, obviously, if they're around Geelong and Torquay and Brimley and Ocean Grove areas, can come and see you. I think that's still allowed at the moment. But what about people who are a bit further away, or even from Melbourne? How do they go about doing a Zoom session with you?
Very easy. You can either go to my Facebook page and you can private message me, or you can go to my website. And so from my website it's very simple, which is passionatebeing.com.au. I'm actually updating it at the moment to reflect more about what it is that I'm doing. But just get in contact with me, and I can do Zoom sessions, which are brilliant. They're really effective. So they're really effective. It's amazing what you can do actually by connecting to people over the screen.
Beautiful. I will ask one last question. I think we have time for. Can you just give something very simple, like a very simple exercise that someone who might be listening now, who is in that state that I was talking about before, where everything does kind of feel numb, and you know that one time, a long time back in your life, you felt really good about everything, but that's a long way away. And what is something very tiny that you can just do, perhaps on a regular basis, to bring yourself back to who you really are?
Gosh, okay. I think one of the things that you could start off with would be, well, I'm kind of thinking about a mixture of things. There's the fact that just to really slow down and take attention to the simple little joys in life. So, whether it's engaging in food and you eat the food with intention and really savor the flavors. So building up sensitivity in that way, I would suggest. Or if someone's really numb, I feel like we all have memories of being loved. We all have memories of being loved and a time in which we've been touched. And it's very powerful when you calm the nervous system down. You can actually then, it's like you're turning down the sound of those things that are just amplified and other stress messages. So by using a way of calming the mind down, which often is for me I find the best thing to work with clients is usually by doing some heart-centered kind of breath and having your hands on your body, and just reminding yourself that you are loved, and finding a moment in time in which you've connected to whether it might be the time in which you were really connected to some gentle touch, and bringing back a memory of love. I'm not sure. Have you found that supportive for you, Tabitha? Have you experienced that?
Yeah.
And it's simple, but it's just to remind yourself that we all have someone that loves us.
Yeah.
We really do, and it's something that we always have to remember. We've got someone that loves us, and so taking yourself to a time in which you experience love, and then turning the volume up. See if you can just maybe 20% more, increasing that feeling in the body. So be playful. Invite curiosity and see if you can just turn it up a little bit more. And then once you've got that, once you've connected to that felt sense of it, allowing it to radiate. So encouraging it to radiate from the heart center to other parts of the body. I would suggest that.
Yeah.
That and just, and touch, like whether it's just engaging in the morning by saying, I'm going to take 15 minutes to just really explore what it is that I like what part of my body today, what part of my body today is really needing extra touch. And sometimes it's not gentle touch, sometimes it's like, oh my God, like the back of my head really needs to be massaged more, but using sound, using breath as you do that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Belinda. I really feel like the work that you're doing is so important and very necessary right now.
Yeah.
And so, yes, thank you very much for doing important work in the world.
Thank you, Tabitha. And I'm so glad to see you shining again.
Thank you.
Beautiful woman.
All right. So thank you very much for being there, everybody. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in. And I have put the link to Belinda's Facebook page up the top of the description. Thank you very much, and hope your evening goes well.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.